potential Florida vote recount, we have details on the new lawsuit emerging. Plus, President-elect Trump's cabinet, who's in and who's not. We're talking about Trump's former presidential competitor Ben Carson's new job. It's all ahead on this edition of VALPO Townhall. Hello and thank you for joining us on VALPO Townhall here on VUTV. I'm Micah Topel alongside Carlos Cabaya, our Republican representative, and Julian Garner as our Democratic representative. Guys, thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you, Micah.
Thank you. Thanks, Micah.
So guys, this is our first show since the election, and I want to get your thoughts on roughly what has transpired in the last month. Do you think that Donald Trump has what it takes to be president and that he has the full support of the American people behind him to do that? Carlos, we'll start with you.
I mean, it's clear that the American people are not all behind Donald Trump. Barack Obama's behind Donald Trump. He's currently aiding Donald Trump into transitioning as the next president of the United States. But some American people have really even protested, signed petitions to recount votes or urged the Electoral College to recount or vote against Donald Trump. But it's clear that Hillary Clinton has already conceded, and Donald Trump will be the next president of the United States, and he has what it takes to be the next president of the United States. Just seeing during election night when Donald Trump gave his victory speech and he was completely respectful to Hillary and that he cut all the BS out and that everything was going to be transitioning well, and he's assuring the American people that the next president of the United States is going to get work done.
Well, it's been completely obvious that this has been a very divisive campaign. A lot of Americans are feeling a lot of different ways. I know myself, like most Democrats and liberals, are experiencing a little bit of a shell shock because obviously the results of the election were completely unexpected. I believe that is now the responsibility of President-elect Trump to work on unifying the nation and having us all come together and respect not just him, but the office of the presidency. And I do believe that it is definitely going to take more than a couple of sayings at a rally saying, let's come together, let's unify, but it's going to take him, going to the neighborhoods, talking to people that didn't support him, and championing or campaigning for a better country. And, he has to realize he's no longer President-elect Trump. I apologize. He's no longer candidate Donald Trump, but he is now President-elect Trump. So he needs to start acting more like it.
Do you guys have any thoughts on the protests that I think some of them have pretty much died down a little bit now, but the protests that occurred right shortly after he won the election?
I think it's understandable that people are afraid of really what's going to happen, especially minority groups. Certain minority groups have been discriminated against in schools and workplaces since Trump was elected. But I think that most people need to realize that no matter who won, something is going to happen, and that I think that it's time for the American people to unify under one president, because that is the only way our country is going to move forward, and that is the only way we're going to make progress. And it's, yes, freedom of the press, freedom to assemble, yes, freedom of speech, but we have to unify under President-elect Trump in order for this country to really move forward and make progress as Americans against terrorism like ISIS and other nations like North Korea, that we have to unify as one country.
Julian, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, I definitely believe that the protests that occurred earlier after President-elect was elected to be the President of the United States were completely justifiable. You have to realize that a lot of Americans, myself included, were hurt, terrified, confused. Van Jones, a popular Democratic anchor on CNN, called this a white lash. And it completely caught several Americans off guard. This President-elect Donald Trump ran his entire campaign off of hate. And, Mexican American people held their children tighter that night, and they were confused. They said, are we going to be separated? Are we going to be torn apart from our loved ones. Muslim Americans feared a continuous stream of prejudiceness against them. African Americans, myself included, we had to think to ourselves, do our lives matter? So I do feel that it is completely up. Yes, the protests were justifiable. I wanted to protest myself, but my family didn't necessarily think that was the best thing to do.
Yeah.
There's other ways for me to express my unsatisfaction with the election results other than protesting, but I completely believe that all Americans have the right to protest and express
Right.
their rights.
We actually have to move on to the next segment here, but this is actually about more on the election though. So 3 Central Florida voters are suing for a recount in their state. The voters claim that Hillary Clinton, not Donald Trump, actually won Florida. They say that malfunctioning machines and hacking were the culprits. The 3 voters are now demanding a hand recount on every paper ballot in Florida. Some lawyers advise that the defendants, President-elect Trump, Governor Rick Scott, and the 29 Republican electors from Florida, may not respond before the Electoral College meets on December 19th. Attorney General Clint Curtis, representing the plaintiffs, says he has received reports of voters being turned away from polls on Election Day in Florida, and some told that they had already voted. The Florida Division of Elections only reported a few minor issues on Election Day. Do you guys have any thoughts on the Florida recount or?
Hillary would need a tremendous amount of votes to even be considered be the next president of the United States. And first of all, Hillary has already conceded the election. It doesn't matter if she did win Florida or Michigan, wherever these recounts are going on. I think she's already conceded, she's already accepted her defeat, and that Donald Trump will be the next president of the United States.
I was definitely a huge Hillary supporter all throughout the campaign. The recount does sound very appealing. However, at the end of the day, and I have myself signed petitions, I've advocated for it all on Facebook with just any form, any hope. It's not over yet. But at the end of the day, I know that Donald Trump is our president now, and we do need to accept him. I do believe, however, that recounts.
That's something that a lot of Americans need to.
Yes. But however, I definitely believe and I strongly feel that the recount should be taken seriously, even if it doesn't change the election. I feel because Hillary Clinton did win the popular vote by over 2.9 million votes, so there are allegations of discrepancies within the actual voting system. So I definitely feel that she has her right, and Jill Stein, I believe this is being led by the Green Party. Jill Stein is leading this, but yes, I definitely feel that if she would like a recount, she absolutely deserves it. And the American people deserve it.
Even after she condemned Trump for not accepting election.
Well, Donald Trump had been preaching the entire election season that the election was rigged, and I think there's a difference between calling it rigged for no reason and just asking for a recount.
Okay, so actually kind of going along with the election being rigged and stuff like that, there's been a lot of concern about the integrity of the American election system as a result of this election, as you guys have been discussing. So here's Representative Darrell Issa on that very topic.
The fact is that we need to get a system that the American people believe in. In California, do you believe voters really believe when they show up at the voting booth and get told to put their ID away, they're not allowed to look at it? When they realize that you can have same-day balloting with no proof, that you can have 50 people living at a single residence. I'm not saying whether there's millions or your underestimation of a handful. The fact is we need to bring a absolute form of confidence, and states have been trying to do that, and this president has been fighting. President Obama has been fighting against the kinds of things that would build confidence back into our voting system.
Let's be quick. So guys, do you believe that voters are genuinely concerned with the integrity of the voting system, or is this just kind of another media hoax, you could say?
Yes, I definitely feel that voters should be concerned with the voting system, especially after the recount. I believe because Hillary Clinton did win with a wide margin. I mean, a majority of the American voters did vote for Hillary Clinton. So because of this, I believe there's some inner insecurities on behalf of Donald Trump when he stated that falsely mentioned there being several allegations of voter fraud. This definitely delegitimizes the election system. So if this Republican representative is saying that we need to move aside from this, that is slightly hypocritical. hypocritical with the leader of your party saying these accusations?
Like I've said before, the election is impossible to be rigged. I came on TV and said that. To me, this is just a media hoax.
Okay. All right, so when we come back, Trump's first 100 days in office, we'll give you the complete overview. Plus, the first cabinet picks in the Trump administration. Former Trump rival Ben Carson is among the chosen few. We'll be right back.
Good morning, Valparaiso University. What's a better way to start your day than with a new jam? And WVUR has just what you need.
But if you close your eyes, does it almost feel like nothing changed at all? And if you close your eyes, does it... If dying young won't change your mind, baby, right.
Broadcasting sports, news, weather, and music on air, online, and on campus. WVUR is my jam.
The first 100 days of the Trump presidency are becoming more clear, and I want to take a moment to get a response from each of you about how you think this crucial time will play out. Julian, you can start.
Yes, the first 100 days is very crucial, very important to any incoming president. So far, he has tried to seek the counsel of President Obama. He's met with former president, front runner of the Democratic Party, Al Gore. So, and I believe he met with Rahm Emanuel earlier today. Yes, these are decent moves on behalf of the president-elect, but at the same time, I would just like to say, be wary of the media's attempt to normalize these things, because at the same time, Donald Trump has had a pretty interesting past of, ushering out these very negative and racist attacks towards several minority groups. So they're good signs so far, but I'm still very skeptical.
I think we're going to make a lot of great progress during the first 100 days of President-elect Trump's presidency. We have a Republican-controlled House of Representatives, Senate, and soon to be a Republican or conservative-controlled Supreme Court. And most governorships are Republican, and I think that there's going to be a lot of successes within Trump's presidency with a unified government, especially with President Obama, like he mentioned, working with Trump to have a peaceful transition into the presidency. And I think that Trump meeting with Al Gore, Rahm Emanuel, and certain Democrat and Republican figureheads it's a good sign of progress for the people.
Okay. So kind of going more off of meeting with Al Gore, President-elect Trump has met with President Obama as well, and we also have a clip coming up here with Representative Issa on the optics of that meeting, of his meeting with Al Gore.
Well, I think what's interesting is that the fact that he's meeting with one of the leaders of the Democratic Party should be something celebrated by everybody. He's casting his net far and wide.
So guys, what are your thoughts with Trump's interactions with these government leaders? We kind of went over that a little bit already, but do you think he's being viewed as an outsider, and do you think that he will have an impact, this will have an impact on his ability to lead? Or I guess with Al Gore specifically, do you think that his, in the past, Trump has obviously called climate control or climate change a hoax created by the Chinese in one of his tweets. And so do you think that his meeting with Al Gore is potentially showing a change of heart, or at least an open mind to hearing others' opinions on that?
Well, the meeting with Al Gore isn't necessarily what startles me. It's a few of the choices he's made, and I know I'm not going to go into too many specifics on this, but more of the choices he's made in terms of cabinet picks. He's picked quite a few people that are from the establishment, and he ran a majority of his campaign on draining the swamp. But a lot of his cabinet choices so far have been made up of old people who are considered to be a part of the Washington establishment.
I think that Trump's cabinet picks are actually great choices. Even though they're part of the establishment, they are against the establishment. These politicians, I mean, like Trump is not a politician himself. He needs politicians with him in order to run the country intelligently, and I think the cabinet picks is a good choice.
Okay. Do you guys have any thoughts on any of the campaign promises that Trump has made that he now has backed a little bit off on, like the wall, I know is one of them, and I think some of his supporters got pretty fired up about the special prosecutor for Hillary Clinton, and he has since said that he would not be pursuing that. Do you think that any of his supporters will feel that they were cheated or anything by voting for him?
Yes, I actually have quite a few thoughts on that. The whole issue of the wall was obviously very concerning, and that was basically one of the focal points of his campaign. You know, the whole wall issue is statistically, economically impossible. It's crazy idea. He has continued to say things at his rallies, there's going to be a wall, but at the end of the day, I just don't see how that would happen, and if it did happen, it would just be disastrous results to follow if he continued about that.
I disagree. I think the wall is economically and statistically possible, but who knows? It might come within the next couple of years. It might not, and we really don't know anymore. Presidential candidates make promises that doesn't always fall through, especially when he has to go through a lot of hoops to reach a goal. With concerns with special prosecution on Hillary Clinton, where he said that he would no longer pursue investigating Hillary, he might secretly do that himself.
But I believe that's an abuse of power. I mean, that happens in third world countries where the elected leader jails or attempts to do some type of thing to kill the opponent.
There's no checks and balances within the government.
But still, I mean, who does it?
Fortunately,
This is
our
the United
government,
States. You
our
shouldn't jail
government
your
have
opponent
checks and balances.
because you don't like them. Is essentially
well,
that's
if
all
she's a criminal who's murdered
well, the FBI
Americans.
came out several times to say, you know, yeah. She's been cleared of that, but you know.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Well, anyway, we could touch on that in another show or another time. So the newest picks for the Trump cabinet are in, as you guys have briefly started discussing already. We'll have all the details ahead when we come back.
Good morning, Valparaiso University. What's a better way to start your day than with a new jam? And WVUR has just what you need.
But if you close your eyes, does it almost feel like nothing changed at all? And if you close your eyes, does it... If Daniel won't change your mind, baby, right.
Broadcasting sports, news, weather, and music on air, online, and on campus. WVUR is my jam.
So Ben Carson turned down one position on Donald Trump's cabinet, but has accepted another. The president-elect's transition team announced Monday that Carson will be nominated as the next Secretary of the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Carson became an early and vocal supporter of Trump after dropping out of the presidential race in March. His name has been attached to multiple cabinet-level positions throughout the transition process, according to his aide. The neurosurgeon also turned down the Health and Human Services Secretary job because of his lack of experience running a federal agency. The Senate will vote to confirm Carson's nomination for the Housing and Urban Development position soon. So many of Trump's picks have been controversial, including Betsy DeVos, who's a millionaire who's passionate about school choice, and Steve Bannon, a right-wing news executive. Do either of you have any general thoughts on or comments on his cabinet choices beyond what you've said so far?
I think that DeVos is a great choice for Secretary of the Education Department, especially because she is in favor of charter schools and school choice, and I think that's a good way for especially people who can't afford private school to go to private school under the government's wing. Since our education system is funded by property taxes, if someone who's living in a low-income neighborhood, they're receiving a low-income or low level of education, and I think that someone who's like DeVos, who's devoted to providing school choice for children across America, I think it's a good choice. With Ben Carson, it's unclear why he would turn down Health and Human Services and go for Housing and Urban Development. It seems like there's a behind-the-scene kind of interest there for Ben Carson, but we're going to see how it plays out, I guess, in the next 4 years.
Yes, those were definitely some very interesting picks. I don't necessarily think that the picking of Betsy DeVos, a millionaire, I think a billionaire actually, was necessarily the best choice because she is an advocate of charter schools, which takes away several dollars worth of funding from public institutions, which is not necessarily a good thing. And I know charter schools are a form of public education, but they are slightly different because they're ran by certain businesses. Steve Bannon, where do I start? Steve Bannon is the leader of the alt-right movement, which is basically code for, not going to say, but the alt-right movement is notoriously racist. They retweet various statements said by white supremacist groups, and Steve Bannon as the chief counselor, I think that's just a very, very poor pick, along with his pick of Jeff Sessions as Attorney General, who's called certain groups such as the NAACP un-American, who's had pending lawsuits because he's been known as a serious racist. So these picks have definitely not been too appealing to me, but
Okay.
you know.
So will his picks align with what Paul Ryan and mainstream Republicans desire? Before we get to that, let's see what Paul Ryan had to say recently about the coming year.
We are ready to hit the ground running, and we need to hit the ground running. We gave the people a very clear choice, and now the people have given us very clear instructions. Deliver results and deliver relief. Relief from Obamacare. This law is hurting families, and it's only going to get worse. Relief from this broken tax code that is costing us jobs, competitiveness, and growth. Relief from overreach and needless regulations that are crushing livelihoods and industries across this country. That is what a unified Republican government will be about. It will be about helping our people reach their potential and making America great again. So 2016 was about raising our gaze. 2017 is going to be about doing big things for our country.
So a lot of what Paul Ryan was saying was about Obamacare and being under the restriction of that and different policies that are related to the Obama administration that he believes are restricting job growth. Is there anything that you guys think? Do you think that Trump's cabinet picks will align with what Paul Ryan wants to do and will kind of see eye to eye on that? Or do you could branch off and just say like whether you believe some of those things will actually happen in the coming year or what that might look like, what that might translate to?
Well, what I would like to speak more specifically on is the message that Donald J. Trump ran his entire campaign on, which was repeal and replace Obamacare. That would be a disaster. Yes, Obamacare, and I'm a Democrat, and I am saying that Obamacare has definitely had its letdowns. It hasn't been perfect, but the total dismantling of it would just be disastrous to the economy. It would leave several Americans without the proper health care that they need, and it just would be an overall horrible decision. So I even believe that he's taken back those statements. He said that on several occasions that, he's not going to repeal and replace it, which would be a lie. But because he ran his entire campaign on repealing and replacing it, which appealed to a large base of his supporters. So yes, he should, I believe, take a page out of Secretary Clinton's book and don't destroy it, don't completely dismantle it, but fix it. Work on the quirks and, make sure that, it can be more suitable.
I think the key words are repeal and replace. Paul Ryan's, in the coming last few months, have placed on the agenda this legislation called the Better Way, which is supposed to repeal and replace Obamacare and provide affordable health care for Americans with their choice of health care. And I think this is a great way for American people to really prosper with affordable health care insurance.
Okay. That's going to be very tough to do, but good luck. He can try.
With a majority of Republicans in Congress.
Yeah, and that also means he has no excuse. He should be a perfect president because everything is red. Everything is red. He shouldn't have any problems getting anything passed.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Do you guys, I guess with this being the last show of the semester, of the year, do you guys have any general thoughts on the year in review or something like that?
Well, the next year that we come back, President-elect Trump will no longer be President-elect. He'll be the President of the United States. And I think that
Well, that's a scary thought to some of you.
You scared me.
this whole year has been a roller coaster of politics and so much campaigning, so much negative ads between both campaigns. So it really has been a tremendous and crazy year. And I think that the next time we come back, and I really am hopeful that we will unify under President Trump.
It's been a very divisive campaign. Yes, I'm still in total awe about the results of it. Donald Trump did lead his entire campaign on hate and horrible things. So yes, I'm just going to give him a chance, as Secretary Clinton and President Obama said, and I'm just going to hope and pray for the best.
Okay. All right. Well, that about does it for this edition of VALPO Town Hall. For Carlos Cabaya, Julian Garner, and all of us here at VUTV, have a great night, VALPO.